So, as you all probably know, especially if you have subscribed to me recently, around when my Fall of the Young Turks video seemingly blew up, then you know that I hate the Young Turks. So I decided to make a video that I deem epic of nothing but wrecking the Young Turks about anything and everything I find that I want to wreck.
It's really weird how we think very differently about money being given by the government to a group of people if they're poor people or if they're rich people. Like if it's 500 euros being given to a person who's dead broke, well then it's like, oh God, I mean maybe an experiment eventually, like oh God, I don't know what effect it might have, and oh maybe it'll make them a little bit lazy. But if it's massive tax cuts for the richest people in the world where we literally just shower them in $1 million or more every year, just do it, see what happens, what's the difference? Nobody's concerned that the rich might work fewer hours if we give them a ton of money in the form of tax cuts. We sort of assume that they'll keep working a little bit. But when it's the poor, oh God, well these lazy motherfuckers, maybe they'll work an hour less a week. I think that that's a weird stereotype.
You're telling me that they have a full fucking studio and nobody once decided to question his logic about that? Not a single person thought that his line of thinking was terribly flawed at all. Like nobody. And let me explain it too. The fact that this guy thinks that not taking money from somebody, tax cuts, is showering and giving rich people money. The fact that he thinks that proves that he has no business being a political commentator or an economic commentator whatsoever. If you think that the state not taking money away from somebody is showering them in money, you are a fucking moron. And do you know why people aren't worried about rich people working less hours? Because they're not living off of the government teat if they're rich. They're not. If they're rich, they're generally the one. In most societies that have taxation, they're generally the one that is funding the government, which, I don't know, is the money that we're giving to poor people. Did you ever think of that? No, you didn't? No, but he was allowed to say this. That is what honestly concerns me about this. He said that he brought this up at a meeting and nobody thought to question him about that. That shows you the mind of a so-called progressive, which is actually a regressive. So yeah, when you give rich people tax cuts by not taking their money that they earned, their own money, okay? A tax cut, not taking their money, or giving them their money back, not giving them other people's money, giving them their money back. If you really think that is the same thing as giving a poor person living off of the government teat money, if you think that is the same thing, then you are intellectually challenged. I would have fired you if I was the owner of the Young Turks. So, do you all remember recently when 4 black people kidnapped a special needs white kid, Trump supporter, I suppose, and they tortured him live on Facebook? Do you guys remember that? Well, the Young Turks did a video on it, as they should. But do you notice something about the title? Mentally disabled man beaten and tortured. Not safe for work video. Okay, yeah, that's accurate, but it was black people that tortured him. Now, it's not a big deal, I mean, because the title does accurately describe the situation that happened, but it just doesn't tell the whole truth. Now, why would the Young Turks avoid mentioning race? White cop tackles black mom after she calls for help. White man on neighborhood watch kills black man. Screw blacks, screw women. White, says conservative thinker. White people with guns not killed by cops. Bill O'Reilly passionately defends the white establishment. No charges for white cop in Eric Garner killing despite shocking video. White cop kills black teen near Ferguson. White Trump fans turn backs to black basketball team. Yet we got mentally disabled man beaten and tortured. See, even when instances that involve a white person killing a black person doesn't involve race, they will race bait like the masters of race bait they are. But when it is an actual instance of racism where the people in this video are shouting, fuck white people, fuck Donald Trump, it doesn't get the same race baiting headline.
And also, by the way, one of the ideas philosophically why we might want to have this is a lot of people, even if they can find a job, are locked into unsatisfying work where they're not necessarily like producing to their true potential. Like if people have a minimum income that they can fall back on, which by the way is not going to be luxurious, it's going to be a shitty way to live, then maybe they can afford to hold out for while they get an education or while they're doing something artistic or starting a business or something like that, rather than having to grind it out in a minimum wage job simply to have food.
Yeah, I think culture has a lot to do with that, and
You hear that, ladies and gentlemen? It is the responsibility of everybody else to subsidize poor people because they don't like their jobs, because poor people are victims, and people in the United States can't work their way out of poverty. No, they can't, and no, they can't. So we're going to incentivize working part-time and getting a basic income because you don't like working or like your job.
American culture, I don't know if it's unique, but I know that there's a lot of emphasis on working and making money regardless of your quality of life, regardless of whether you feel fulfilled. It's all about work, 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 make as much money as possible. If you don't, then you must be lazy. If you're unhappy, you're ungrateful, first world problem.
Who the fuck has ever said that? Who respectable has ever said that? No, the idea is you work and you provide for yourself, not relying on other people to pay your way via state theft taxation or living off of the government teat, which, well, gets their money from state theft via taxation. Is that really that hard of a concept to get? Or are you progressives just so one-sided? It's just so ridiculous how close-minded you guys are. Oh my god, this thought. Apparently they have meetings about this shit, and they have a full team. But no, none of them ever think about it. They have a fucking full-on echo chamber.
In Republican-controlled states across the country over the last few years, we have seen several Republican governors try to implement some form of drug testing for people on welfare, people, the poor.
Yep, Republicans hate poor people. That is exactly it.
Basically, they want to drug test these people because they think that anybody who doesn't make enough money to support themselves is obviously on drugs.
No, he didn't just say that. He did just fucking say that, didn't he? I heard that, right? Yes, because, we're gonna test people who are on welfare because obviously, because they're poor, they're on drugs. What an amazing straw man to bring up. Really, what an amazing straw man. No, we don't want to drug test people who are on welfare because we think they are on drugs. Sorry, I'm not really a Republican. Republicans don't want to drug test people who are on welfare because they think they are on drugs. No, they want to drug test people who are on welfare to see if they are wasting their money on drugs. And newsflash, there's a lot of them. I was a cashier. I can't tell you how many crackheads came through my fucking line when I was working at a grocery store. Has it ever dawned on you that Republicans who generally, at least the free market ones, generally don't want to give other people's money away? And since obviously they're going to have a hard time, getting rid of welfare, food stamps, and all that stuff, the next best thing in a preferable society, if you can't cut state theft, taxation, and you can't stop giving it to other people, then, well, you're gonna want to drug test people so you know that the welfare gets in the right hands. Because Republicans, Libertarians, anybody else who is generally against welfare doesn't want to subsidize somebody who can actually afford food, but is wasting their money on luxurious items like drugs. But I imagine when you live and work in an echo chamber like the Young Turks and this guy, that thought probably won't cross your mind.
Well, one of the things that they have not been allowed to do is drug test food stamp recipients. But Wisconsin Republican Governor Scott Walker is hoping to change all that. And right now, he is currently begging Donald Trump to change the rules on food stamp recipients so that Wisconsin can begin drug testing people who receive food stamps.
Now, I disagree with that, and not because of the same reason this guy disagrees with that. I am all for drug testing welfare recipients and food stamp recipients because I know quite a few of them who are on drugs, who can't get a job, therefore they rely on food stamps, or who would be able to afford food or certain items, necessities, if they weren't buying fucking drugs. They would be able to afford it. But the reason why I disagree with it is because I don't think it is the federal government's job to step in and change the laws of the state. However, if the federal government wanted to step in and say, hey, Wisconsin, no more taxation, no more income taxation, then I guess I'd be fine with that. I'd be cool with that. But I think that's a federal overreach, asking for the federal government to force Wisconsin, a sovereign state, to drug test people when it's not state law. I'm against federal overreach. So yeah, I'm against it, but not for the same reason.